Hey guys, it's Plant Genius. So today we're going to be talking about transpiration. Transpiration is a very important process in plants. It's pretty much the life source of how they cycle water through their stems, along with the process called osmosis. But let's get into it. Okay, so normally osmosis is just the process of water moving from a high concentration to a lower concentration. So that's like even with cells. Like you'll see there'll be I'll draw it. So you'll see a cell, and let's say there's solutes here or things that can be dissolved. And then there's a solvent, which is like water outside, right? Water is attracted to those solutes because there's no concentration of that in there, and there's a higher concentration outside the cell than inside the cell, so the water will go in, so it's balanced, so they can have equilibrium. So that's what will happen, and water will go inside the cells and dissolve the solutes. So then we have our solvent and our solutes together. Then you have dissolved minerals. Now going back to our plant, similar things happen to them. Like osmosis will move into cells to dissolve nutrients, and that's how nutrients get dissolved in the roots and in the soil as well. But the process of water being pulled up the cell and pull up the plant cell and against gravity is called transpiration, which you guys might have learned in school, where plants transpire, water leaves the leaves, and then that contributes overall from trees and other things to rain, because there's a high concentration of moisture in the air, and then that goes in the clouds, and then it rains back down. The cycle continues, right? So transpiration is very important for plants, because this is how plants are getting their water up, and that's when plants become firm, because they have such a high pressure and a consistent pressure of water that their leaves are allowed to get firm, and then also that helps with photosynthesis and just allowing the plant to be able to maintain its temperature and its internal temperature, so it can actually stay alive and stay firm in where it is. Because plants are just plant like us, if we get too hot or too cold, we get a little weak. Kind of same thing with them. So if they get too hot or too cold, they'll start to malfunction, because they don't have the consistency. They need to find that balance too, or that equilibrium as well, or homeostasis. But so that's kind of the whole thing with that. So pretty much what happens is again, the water is being pulled into the cell through osmosis, and then it's being pulled up, because as the water leaves the cell, from the leaves, that creates a pull up the plant, and then continues to go out, and then up, up, and then out, and then up and out. So water comes up from the roots through osmosis, and then through the transpiration process that's happening in the leaves, that's pulling water up. So it's kind of like a continuous funnel, and then the water leaves out. And so the reason why transpiration is important too, because this is an important process when you're transplanting plants, for instance, because when you transplant plants, remember, this is the main way of plants getting water in their cells, and then also out of it, if they need to cool down. Because as I mentioned in an earlier video with plants, they have to balance the outside moisture with the inside moisture internally with themselves. So they'll let out water and moisture out from their cells, compared to the dryness or the moisture and humidity inside the air. So if it's really dry in the air, then plants will have to let out a lot of water, so that balance, because the dry air will pull out moisture from the plant, because again, homeostasis and equilibrium, it has to be balanced. But if it's moist, then it'll be slower, because there will be some water and moisture outside the cell, so the pull doesn't have to be as high. And that's why you have to be careful about having your plants around HVAC systems and stuff like that, because it could destroy your plant, right? It's a very interesting process. It's a very interesting process, because it's just wow, there's a lot of things that goes into how plants move and function, and especially if you're looking at why your plant's wilting, because that process could be messed up or interrupted by many different reasons. It could be that it might be too cold, or it might be too hot, and now the stomata are trying to close or open up, so they can let either a lot of water go in, or retain water, so they can keep that pull going. But if it's closed and it needs to be open, that's actually going to cause longer detrimental effects to your plants, because it needs to have a consistent opening or closing, so that the pull can happen effectively, but also so it can retain what it needs to retain. So That's a lot that goes into it, but that's just a little snippet of like transpiration. So pretty much again, transpiration is the process of, well, osmosis is the process of water moving from a lower concentration to a higher concentration following solutes. But the transpirational pull is how water is being pulled up the cells through water evaporating out of the leaves, and then that cycle continues so the plant can stay firm and up in its place. So again, I thank you guys for watching. And also remember, when you transplant your plants, make sure you water it thoroughly, depending on your plant, because when you uproot a plant during their transpiration, like because of the transpirational pool, it'll get stopped. Like it'll happen, and then like that's when you see your plant to start to wilt. So you continue to water it a lot, so like you have the water, so the plant can continue that cycle. But yeah, that was just a little side note. But again, I thank you guys for watching. And remember, I may be a plant genius, but you can be a plant genius too. Hit that like and subscribe button, and thank you guys for watching. Peace.